Katie here from the Queen of Teen Fiction, and it is that time of year again where I think it's a good idea to take part in Camp NaNoWriMo, and then it gets to a week before Camp NaNoWriMo and I realise that I am hugely unprepared. So for those of you who don't know, NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month and it usually takes place in November. It is the challenge to write 50,000 words within the space of a month. But throughout the months of April and July there is a Camp NaNoWriMo. Camp NaNoWriMo is slightly different to the actual novel writing month. You can set your own word goal so you don't have to reach 50,000 words in order to win. And because it's a camp, you can also get placed in virtual cabins. Now, if you have a lot of friends that are taking part, then you can sign up to join a cabin with them and create your own private cabin. Or you can get put in a random cabin with random cabin mates, which is what I do every year. Your cabin is basically just a place for you to update and talk to your fellow writers throughout the month. And hopefully to get some inspiration from them when you inevitably hit that nano brick wall where you can't write anything, which is me from day one usually. So despite me usually complaining throughout any NaNoWriMo and highly regretting the decision to take part, I am of course doing Camp NaNoWriMo again. So yeah, that's happening throughout July. I have had a lot of problems with planning for this year, and yeah, this could be a very problematic year for me. So let me tell you why I'm doing Camp Nano this year. I did the normal NaNoWriMo back in November, and if you watched any of the vlogs that I did throughout that month, you will know that I came up with an idea for another story as I was working on that story for that month. But I couldn't work on it because I was so focused on the story that I was writing at the time. So I had to just write down my basic idea and leave it. It wasn't necessarily a story that I came up with, it was more the characters. I ended up with these two characters that I know a lot about. In my mind, I know what they look like, I know their personalities, and I really love these characters. But I don't have an overall story for them. I know that they belong in a fantasy story, so I know a few things here and there, but yeah, I still don't have an overall plot for them. My initial plan when I came up with them in November was to work on their story and then write it during Camp Nano, but it hit May of this year and I still didn't have a plot for them, and because I love these two characters so much, I didn't want to just rush into creating any story for them, because I feel like these are characters that I want to take my time with and I want to really plan out their story because I'm excited about them. So I didn't want to use them for Camp Nano. However, I still wanted to take part in Camp Nano because I do every summer. So what I decided is to work on something else. Specifically, I wanted to practice fantasy writing. Now with my other stories that I write, they're usually fantasy but not high fantasy. They're usually just stories that have fantasy elements in them. So my stories in the past have been set in normal high schools. They've got a typical high school setting for teenagers, but there will be something supernaturally going on alongside that. So one of my characters could see ghosts. Another one of my characters was clairvoyant. So yeah, they're kind of normal stories but with fantasy elements. I've never actually written anything that's high fantasy. I've never created my own world or a world within our world. I've created societies of people, but not a whole world. And because I feel like these two characters I've created belong in a different world, I wanted to practice writing that sort of fantasy. So I thought that the best thing to do was to use this Camp Nano to try writing high fantasy. But I had the problem of not having an idea to work on as a practice story. So yeah, I had to come up with something. And I figured out that I was going to do this in May, so I've had 2 months to come up with an idea, and it hasn't gone well. There was one afternoon in May where I had been sitting trying to come up with ideas, so I was struggling to get any notes down. I was restless and very irritable because I just wanted a story idea and no story ideas would arrive in my mind. So me and my sister decided to just take a walk, and I took my camera with me because, you know, people always advise you to take a walk to try and get inspiration. That's never really happened to me before. I go out with my camera all the time and it doesn't usually spark any inspiration for story ideas. But it was a nice afternoon, so I figured why not go for a walk anyway. And so we're walking along this hill that's on a riverbed, and right down by the side of the river is a row of benches, so you can sit there and look out at the water. And as we were walking past the benches, there was a boy sitting on one of them, wearing a black hoodie, and he had his head in his hands. He didn't look like he was having a good day. I mean, he could have just been sitting there enjoying the nice view of the river on a really sunny day. I don't know. But anyway, we walked past this bench with this boy on. So after that we carried on walking, and we spent about an hour photographing and wandering around. So on our way back we walked past the benches again, and this boy in the black hoodie was still sitting there and had been, I assume, for this whole time. However, on the bench a few meters away from where he was sitting, there was another boy in a black hoodie, also resting his head in his hands, just looking out at the water. And these two boys just looked like the mirror image of each other. And I just remember saying to my sister, what would you do if we walked back past them again, and this time they were sitting on the same bench instead of two separate benches? And so just from saying that, the two of us suddenly started to come up with ideas as to why these two boys on two separate benches would suddenly end up sitting on the same bench. And we had a 45-minute walk to get home, and we spent that entire time just coming up with different scenarios. And yeah, so straight away I was like, this is a story. I need to tell their story. I don't know why they were sitting on the benches that day and why they looked so down, but I wanted to write about them. Just seeing that image of these two boys that looked very alike sitting on two separate benches, I just wanted to write about it. I wanted to write how they could cross paths. So for the first time ever, me actually deciding to take a walk to try and get inspiration actually did give me inspiration. I didn't genuinely expect to get a story idea from that walk, but I did, so yay! However, all of the ideas that me and my sister were coming up with were very contemporary ideas, and I didn't want a contemporary idea. The whole point of me doing Camp Nano this year was specifically to write fantasy, so I really didn't want to do a contemporary story. So when I got home I had to sit down and force myself to try and find a way to make it a fantasy idea. And as with my other story, I came up with the characters, and I started to get to know the characters really well, but still didn't have a story for them. And it really annoyed me because this keeps happening, and I need plots. I need to come up with plots. So yeah, I have my two characters of the two boys on benches, but I don't know what they're doing or how they cross paths. As I'm recording this video, it is the 23rd of June, so it is literally 1 week until Camp Nano, and I still don't really have my plot figured out. I kind of have a basic idea of what I want to do, but it's very cliche. It's very cliche fantasy, which isn't good. However, I always intended for this to be a practice writing session, so I'm just going to try writing a fantasy story throughout July, and then if I don't like it, I could always go back and work on one of the contemporary ideas that I originally came up with when I saw these two boys. But for now, they're going in a fantasy world. Hopefully. But anyway, because I was out photographing that day, I had my camera with me, and I was actually snapping pictures of the river when I saw these two boys. So they ended up in one of my photographs, which I realised when I came back and looked through the pictures on my camera. So yeah, here's the image that inspired my story this year. See, sometimes you just see something and you have to write about it. And that was one of those things for me. It doesn't happen very often. I don't usually just see something and think, yes, this is a story, I've got to work on it. But this was one of those occasions. So I couldn't ignore it, because it's not often that I get hit with some random inspiration. So yeah, I have no idea who those two boys were, whether they were having a bad day or not. I mean, they could have been part of a secret drug deal for all I know. I have absolutely no idea who they are or what they were doing that day. But they gave me some inspiration to write, so I'm very grateful to whoever they are. So yeah, that is what I am working on for Camp NaNoWriMo this year. It could be disastrous because I'm going in not really knowing what I'm doing, But hey, I'll try and make some videos throughout the month to keep you updated on my nano journey. It will probably just be videos of me crying for 5 minutes non-stop, but I'll try and update you. So please let me know if you're doing Camp NaNoWriMo this year. Do you have your story plotted out better than me? Probably. What type of story are you working on? Please let me know all the writerly things in the comments. And good luck to you all taking part. I'm sure you will do a lot better than I will. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!